So we're going to talk now a little bit about change. When we look at how trauma is present in our schools, the list is really quite long, as we just talked about, and it's really complicated. This is one of the reasons that in trauma-informed education, there's no central checklist that you can put into place at every single school that will make any school trauma-informed. A big part of that is because every school is different, every community is different, and the way that trauma is present is different. And so instead, trauma-informed education asks us to look at how is trauma present here, and then with an understanding of how trauma works and how it impacts people, figure out how we're going to make change to do one of those three things I said before. Be responsive to trauma, interrupt trauma from in school, and help to shape students who are going out in the world in a less traumatizing way. And so when we talk about all of this, it's a really big project, like I said, and it's going to take people not just in schools, right? Like lawmakers need to change certain things so that there's less trauma. Like, I heard people talking about like loss of jobs in the community could contribute to trauma in schools. That's something that schools can't do anything about, right? Like, you can't control whether the factory closes down or whether people lose their health care. So if we really want a trauma-informed society, then lawmakers need to do things. Superintendents, school boards, community members all need to do things. But I think that schools and teachers specifically, we can also be doing small things. And this isn't about adding something big to your plate. It's more about feeling empowered that we can find something that feels good to us, that feels powerful to us, and make some changes so that we move from a place of just feeling like trauma is always going to be this huge impact to I can slowly start to chip away at some things. I sometimes think about this like, if I was abducted by an alien tomorrow, then would my school be any more trauma-informed than when I started learning about all this? If your answer is no, it might be a sign of, could I do something even just that's small so that things change at my school and we're not constantly chasing down the same problems again and again? So for example, if you have students that every single year you find students are really disconnected and they don't feel safe around their teachers, and you put in all this work every year to make sure they feel safe with you, but there's still kids falling through the cracks. If I'm having that same problem year after year after year, I might think about, could there be something we change about the school, even if it's small, so that that's not happening? Maybe it's as simple as something that we do during teacher in-service at the start of the year. Maybe we're going to be more intentional about advisory, or, there's all kinds of different ways you might approach that problem. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be something on your plate, but what's my small mark I could leave? So we're going to think a little bit about this, and it's kind of intentionally a different view of change than we talk about in schools a lot. Oftentimes in schools, change comes from the top, right? It comes from the principal, the superintendent, the school board decide to do something, and then we just have to do it, right? And this is a vision of change that's a little differently about how we make it happen ourselves, even if it's not following some checklist. So I'm going to read you this quote, and then I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to think about it and see how it lands with you. This is from Margaret Wheatley, who has this really great book on leadership called Leadership in the New Science. She writes, "Acting locally allows us to be inside the movement and flow of the system, a participant in all those complex events occurring simultaneously. Activities in one part of the whole create effects that appear in distant places. Because of these unseen connections, there is potential value in working anywhere in the system. We never know how our small activities will affect others through the invisible fabric of our connectedness. I have learned that in an exquisitely connected world, it's never a question of critical mass. It's always about critical connections." So this is really different than thinking about change that just comes down on you from your principal, right? And so I just want you to take a couple minutes here. Like I said, we're doing a little SEL, take a little reflection. Think about how this lands with you. How does it resonate with how you think change happens? And then when you think about acting locally or doing something small, making those critical connections, what do you think of? So just take a couple minutes here.